Survivor Series 2008 was shaping up to feature a big triple threat: Triple H, Vladimir Kozlov, and Jeff Hardy. But hours before the show, WWE released a statement saying Hardy had been found unconscious in a hotel stairwell and rushed to the hospital. Media outlets picked it up immediately. Even TMZ started calling around, trying to confirm the story. Only there was nothing to confirm, because the whole thing was fake. It was a storyline crafted to write Hardy out of the match and stir up a last-minute buzz. The problem? Hardy had a well-known history with addiction. This wasn't just tone-deaf, it was exploitative. Even in 2008, people cringed. Now, with everything Hardy's been through, the angle feels more than inappropriate. It feels mean-spirited. When Roman Reigns announced in 2018 that his leukemia had returned and he was relinquishing the Universal title, it was one of those rare moments where the wrestling world stopped spinning. Fans who had booed him relentlessly now stood in silent support. There was no angle here, just a real human being stepping away to fight for his life. But when Roman returned a few months later, WWE couldn't resist turning it into a plot twist. They had Dean Ambrose imply in a promo that maybe Roman's illness was punishment, hinting that Reigns or the fans deserved what had happened. It was subtle, but not subtle enough. Fans hated it. Ambrose hated it. Even Reigns looked uncomfortable. The story fizzled and was quietly dropped. And honestly, that was for the best. Some things shouldn't be turned into content. WrestleMania 15 featured a Hell in a Cell match between Big Boss Man and The Undertaker. One of those feuds that felt thrown together just to fill a spot on the card. But what happened after the match left a lasting impression for all the wrong reasons. As the cell lifted, a noose was lowered from the rafters. The Undertaker tied it around Boss Man's neck, and the structure rose again, leaving him dangling midair in what looked disturbingly close to a staged execution. Commentators tried to sell it as drama. The crowd didn't quite know how to react. Years later, with Boss Man having passed away at just 41, that visual hasn't aged well. It wasn't theatrical or ironic. It was just disturbing. In 1996, WWE leaned hard into shock TV. One night, Stone Cold Steve Austin invaded Brian Pillman's house live on air. Cameras cut between Austin breaking in and Pillman grabbing a handgun, pointing it toward the door and shouting threats at the screen. And then the feed cut to black. The segment was supposed to make Pillman look unstable, maybe even dangerous. Instead, it nearly got WWE pulled off the air. Pillman passed away less than a year later from heart complications, and the segment, already controversial, turned into something much harder to defend. It's never aired again, and probably never will. Love him or hate him, the Ultimate Warrior had spent years on bad terms with WWE. So when he returned in 2014, fans were shocked and moved. He entered the Hall of Fame, made a brief WrestleMania appearance, and then showed up on Raw to give one final speech. He talked about a man's heart beating its last beat, about a spirit that lives on even when the man is gone. No one thought much of it at that time. The next day, he collapsed and died of a heart attack outside his hotel room. Just like that, the speech transformed into a posthumous farewell. It's remembered as one of the eeriest and most surreal moments in WWE history, not because of the words themselves, but because of how tragically real they became. On June 25, 2007, WWE aired a full tribute to Chris Benoit. At the time, news had broken that he, his wife Nancy, and their young son Daniel had been found dead. No one knew the details yet, and WWE did what they always did in the face of tragedy. They honored the man. The next day, everything changed. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a murder-suicide. WWE immediately pulled the tribute from every platform they could. Benoit's name became something they didn't just avoid, they actively erased. One moment still stands out: William Regal's segment. Unlike the others, it was short, quiet, and hesitant, almost like he sensed something was off. That silence, in hindsight, speaks louder than any eulogy. At ECW One Night Stand in 2005, Mike Awesome returned to a chorus of boos. Fans hadn't forgiven him for jumping ship to WCW years earlier. But in typical ECW fashion, he wrestled like he had something to prove, and absolutely delivered. Then, mid-match, years later, Mike Awesome died by suicide. That throwaway line, meant as a bitter in-joke, suddenly became something much darker. Joey Styles likely didn't mean it literally, but the clip remains one of the most unfortunate soundbites in wrestling history. In September 2012, during a live episode of Raw, Jerry the King Lawler collapsed at the commentary desk mid-broadcast. He'd had a massive heart attack. Medical staff rushed to his side, and for several minutes, the show continued with zero commentary. Just silent footage of matches while everyone backstage scrambled. WWE issued a statement later that night. Lawler had been stabilized, but the incident shook fans, talent, and everyone who witnessed it. You'd think that would be the end of it, but this is WWE. Just weeks later, CM Punk, then a heel champion, was out there cutting promos mocking Lawler's heart attack. He claimed responsibility for it, saying Jerry's heart stopped because he couldn't handle Punk's greatness. Paul Heyman even faked a heart attack in the middle of the ring for laughs. Even by wrestling standards, it was a lot. The crowd reaction was mixed, and not in the good heat kind of way. May 23, 1999 was supposed to be another night of entertainment. Owen Hart, wrestling as the goofy blue blazer, was set to rappel down from the rafters into the ring. The harness malfunctioned, and Owen fell over 70 feet, landing chest first on the turnbuckle. The broadcast quickly cut to the crowd and announcers. Jim Ross, clearly shaken, would soon announce the unthinkable. Owen Hart had died. And then the show went on. That part still stings for many fans. The crowd sat in stunned silence while matches continued, unsure whether what they had just seen was real. WWE has never aired the footage, and they never will. But for those watching live, it was a moment that turned from surreal to tragic in the blink of an eye, and it changed the industry forever. In 2002, WWE decided it was time to test the limits of bad taste. The result was the Katie Vick storyline, one of the most notorious segments in company history. Triple H, feuding with Kane, claimed that Kane had once killed a woman named Katie Vick in a drunk driving accident. Then, because subtlety was dead, WWE had Triple H dress in a Kane mask and simulate necrophilia with a mannequin in a coffin. That's not even an exaggeration. That's what actually aired. Even for the era of shock value and boundary-pushing segments, it crossed a line no one was asking them to approach. Fans hated it. Critics ripped it apart. WWE later admitted it was a mistake, but that hasn't stopped it from being burned into the company's history as a major screw-up. Muhammad Hassan was introduced in 2005 as an Arab-American character frustrated with the discrimination and stereotyping. It could have been a compelling commentary. Instead, WWE ran the stereotype straight into the ground. Backlash was immediate. WWE tried to edit the segment out of future broadcasts. What might have been a nuanced character became a cautionary example of just how quickly wrestling can veer into something it should have never touched in the first place.